Okay, now let's move on to one of the really, really fun things you can do with signal processing, chorusing. I'm going to clean up a lot of this here because we're not going to need it as much, but let's get that down there. And we'll change this to chorus out, like so. Chorusing is going to make use of a really, really interesting pair of objects, which are tap in, which is input to a audio delay line, and we're going to use a maximum delay amount of 200 milliseconds, and then that tap in has to be paired directly to a tap out object. I'm going to give that a argument of 0. And actually, you know what? Let's take this down to, I think we'll do 100 because 200 might get a little bit feedbacky when we start playing with that. So tap in to tap out. Now, one thing that I do want to do, just because it's kind of the essential nature of chorusing, is I want to have a variable delay and I want a feedback amount. I want some of that signal that's coming out of tap out not to just go down here to the dry wet balance, but to go back in to tap in as well, but to have a scaling control that will allow me to control how much of that percent goes in. So I'm going to create a new multiply object, give it an argument of 0 because I don't want it to inadvertently start a feedback loop. I'm going to connect the output of tap out to that, and I'm going to connect that back in to tap in. So it's created a feedback loop that will send send audio out of here into the multiplier and back into tap in, which then connects to tap out, and the cycle repeats itself. So I said that I wanted this to be a random amount of time that's coming through here. That I'm using a random variable delay with tap in and tap out because that's all they are, is they're just a variable delay line. So I'm going to do that by creating a object called rand, which is a band limited random signal. I'm just going to connect up to this slider. I'm going to adjust the value. Rand is operating in terms of hertz, so I'm just going to give it a range of 1, well, maybe not 1, how about 0 to 8 hertz, and that will give me a pretty good signal. So that's going to be the rate of what I'm doing. Now, with that rate, I need to scale and multiply that by a depth. So that's really easy. I can just create a multiply by 0 point, and then I'm going to duplicate, create a slider here, and this slider I'm going to have a range of 0 to 1. 0 to 100%. That will be my depth. Next, I need to have time. To vary the time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the multiplier, and then I'm going to add a constant value to that. So I'm going to create a plus tilde 0 point, because again, we don't want anything to start up automatically just yet. Then I'm going to put all of that together like so. Now, this time value is going to be in milliseconds, so I will duplicate here, and then I'm going to change the value to be between 0 and let's do 20 milliseconds. So I'm going to add that as a multiple, and I'm going to also add it as a DC constant, which will be useful when it's kind of varying the speed of the random wave around this central DC value. So it's going to be, 0 to 20 plus or minus itself, and the values multiplied by depth coming from a random wave, which is in the range of -1 to 1. So that's going to be really, really super useful. That will give me the ability to create this variable speed delay that's going to be kind of giving me the chorus effect. The last thing that I need, I'm going to move this down even more. I'm going to duplicate, and this one I'm going to make sure it has a range of 0 to 1. This is going to be my feedback slider. So this is where everything's getting really complicated. At this point, I recommend you start giving all of these names. So rate, and let's call this one depth. This is going to be time and feedback. And then, of course, dry wet. Now, what I have to do is to connect this into tap out. And I'm going to connect a scope as well so you can see the waveform that we're generating here. Let me take a look at that. Yep. All right. Let's make sure it's nice and low. And I'm going to have to adjust my range. I think it's probably -40 to 40 should be good. If we up the rate. There it is. So that's my random wave, and it's varying here in the tap out. You'll note that because I also gave it the plus, it's only going to be in the positive range. And then with the amount of feedback, that won't show up. But it will when we bring this signal in. So let's hear Anton by itself. And now I'm going to fade in our chorusing effect. So your mileage may vary on that. You have to play around with these objects to really get the best feel for where they will occur. But that is chorusing. And next up, we're going to look at flanging, which is a really, really cool variant on the chorusing effect. I recommend that you keep a copy of the chorus patch open when we do that. You're going to want to compare the two. It will be cool.